Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Grassroots Marketing, Engaging Locals as Brand Advocates, presented by Lauren Reed, President and Founder of Reed Public Relations. I'm Patricia Capella, the Conference Manager for Clarion UX Food Shows, which produces the Western Food Service and Hospitality Expo, the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Show, and the upcoming International Restaurant and Food Service Show of New York, all of which are co-located with Coffee Fest and the new Healthy Food Expo. We also produce the NGA show for independent grocers, which will take place in February in San Diego. We invite you to visit www.foodandbevshows.com for more information on all of our upcoming events. A few housekeeping notes before we begin the presentation. All audience members are on listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and encourage you to participate by using the question pane. There will be time for question and answers at the end of the session. This webinar, as well as others in our series, will be made available on our website in the coming week. Now, let me turn the program over to Lauren Reed. Lauren?
Thank you, Patricia. I am so excited to be with you all today. I'll start with telling you a little bit about myself. My name's Lauren Reed. I own a 10-person PR agency in America's greatest city, Nashville, Tennessee. We specialize in consumer-facing brands, primarily in the hospitality and food and beverage spaces. At our agency, we do a lot of client work that falls into two different buckets. And it's either going to be a national brand launching in a local market. So, for example, McDonald's, Ford Motor Company, Bank of America, they come to us when they have a need specific to the Southeast. Or it's an independent restaurant or hotel that is in the Southeast. So we do a lot of work in Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee. We even have some hotels in Florida, New Mexico, all over the place. But really what we're very strong in is the consumer-facing PR and marketing and the food and hospitality. And something interesting about our team, I always get a lot of questions on during the Q&A part, is we are a team of all millennials, and I know clients come to us looking to really target millennials, Gen Z, so it's been a lot of fun to integrate that perspective into our PR campaigns. I'll start with talking about the state of marketing and PR in 2018. So there's really two main themes that are driving PR over the past, let's say, 5 to 8 years. The first is going to be the rapid decline of writers, editors, and producers at traditional media outlets. In the past 15 years, more than half of the jobs in the news industry has disappeared, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So these days, you can't send a blanket press release to a newsroom and have a reporter assigned to write a full feature on your restaurant or property. They simply don't have the staff. With any luck, they might copy and paste your press release and run it as an online story. But even then, you aren't making the genuine connection with your audience in that area, so your story is likely to get lost in the shuffle. The second is a byproduct of the first, and that is there's just more and more competition to tell the same story. Fewer reporters and writers mean there is more competition for limited media space. If you're telling a run-of-the-mill story, like opening a new location, the stakes are even higher to set yourself apart and grab the media's attention. And finally, digital is really taking over. Having a writer from the local paper, if they were willing to come sit down at your restaurant and try your new menu items, it actually might not be the best way to tell your story anymore. The rise of social media, blogs, influencer relations has really led to a new generation of storytellers, and having a strong digital presence is essential for a successful marketing campaign today. So what does this mean for you? It's actually really exciting. It means you need to it actually means you have the opportunity to take a creative and tailored approach to earned media and reach the community that is supporting your business. There's no one-size-fits-all campaign anymore. You need to stand out from the crowd and grab people's attention. The people who tell your story are changing. As we've discussed, there might not even be a restaurant writer at your local paper anymore. So here in Nashville, we have the Tennessean daily newspaper, a Gannett paper, one of the larger daily papers, and we actually don't have somebody assigned to restaurants anymore. So You really need to go where the new generation of storytellers are. And so while this might sound intimidating or scary, it actually creates endless opportunities for you to connect with your guests, which is really exciting. When I started working in the PR and marketing industry about 14, 15 years ago, social media was brand new. Most of my clients were not integrating it into their strategies at all at that point. And to generate awareness for, let's say, a restaurant, a tourism attraction, or a hotel, we would set up a press tour, or we would pitch a press release to media, and then, we would really hope that the audience, they would run it, and that our audience read it or saw that news segment. Campaigns rarely directly interacted with consumers, and if they did, it certainly wasn't at the level that we do now. So while, yes, there are some limiting factors now with the decline in media, there's just endless opportunity, and it's really critical to update your marketing strategy to reflect this. So today I'm going to share an overview of how we do this at our agency in hopes that you can take some takeaways and some of these key points for your brands. Really, you need to start by finding your story. What is the one thing about your brand that your audience will not only connect with, but want to share it with their networks? Sharing it with their networks is really a key piece of all of this, as we're going to talk about today. So we really take a look at the following items. Identify those differentiators. Think about some timely events or holidays coming up that you can tie into. Select top targets. Focus on quality, customized outreach, and no mass emails. All of your marketing should take a really personalized approach. So I know you're probably looking at this on the screen and thinking, okay, what does this mean? Can I hear a case study? So we're going to talk about a client that we've done this for recently. We're actually going to talk about a couple different case studies. So I'm going to start with the Tennessean Hotel. And this is an example of a campaign for a client that was a result of the changing media landscape. And even though it was a bootstrapped campaign, it received significant national coverage. Before I go any further into our case studies, I do want to note that any marketing or media-worthy ideas really need to be compatible with your operations team, and it really needs to be executable. So as a PR agency, when we work with clients, the first thing we do before we even go to like the CMO or the marketing VP is we're going to run an idea past the GMs in the restaurants or the GMs at the hotel and say, can your team pull this off? Because if your frontline employees can't pull it off, then there's really no point in even doing it. So big ideas are great, but big ideas need to be practical as well. So anything we talk through today, know that before we even went down the path, we've really sat down with operations to make sure the logistics made sense. So the Tennessean Hotel is in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was something brand new to the area in 2017. It's a personal luxury hotel complete with 24/7 butler service, a 5-star concierge team, a governor's suite with a baby grand piano, a 360-degree view of the city and Neyland Stadium, the works. But while this was a great new product for Knoxville, Tennessee, it was not necessarily new or didn't really differentiate itself in the world of luxury travel. And in the increasingly competitive world of tourism media, we really had to get creative if we were going to get national attention. So recognizing the factors that we talked about earlier, particularly the changing media landscape and the decline in journalists, we developed a very cost-effective and targeted strategy. Rather than sending out a press release, do a press tour, or inviting several different outlets in to spend the night in the hotel, because as you all probably know, they just don't have the time to do that anymore. They don't have the time to typically come sit down and eat at your restaurants and write a long review on it. We wanted to pinpoint the top 10 national outlets we wanted to be in. And then we created a customized box with each writer's name. Engraved in gold lettering, the box included several of the luxury bath products available to every guest that stays at the hotel, a Tennessean-themed linen sourced from France that's actually used in the restaurant, and a handwritten note from the innkeeper personally inviting the writer to come visit the Tennessean if they were able to, but if not, to reach out so we could talk about the hotel. Overall, our client was out less than $1,000 on the press kits. If we had done, let's say, a press tour or even a release and comp stays for 30 reporters, we would have been out much, much more. I mean, that would be tens of thousands of dollars. So this one initiative right here, less than $1,000, received national media coverage in Forbes, Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast, Garden & Gun, and Southern Living, because we took a very strategic and thoughtful approach. And instead of targeting the masses, we went to the people we knew would be key influencers for us and would be the best people to tell the story. So I share this as an example, as a way to get you thinking about what kinds of things are specific to your brand and how can you share them in a targeted, strategic way, and who are the right people. In this case, it was the media. It was some very targeted national exclusive media. However, in a lot of cases, it's going to be some of your key guests or influencers within your community. So let's talk about another story, how we've done this with O'Charlie's. O'Charlie's is headquartered here in Nashville, Tennessee. They have about 200 restaurants in about 12 different states. I've worked with them for about 8 years now, and they came to me several years ago and said, Lauren, we're re-imaging, which is their term for the renovation. We're re-imaging all of our restaurants over the next 3 to 5 years. And when they re-image, they shut down for a few days, and then they open up, and they wanted to make a splash when they opened up. And they said, we want to do a ribbon cutting at all of our restaurants when we open up, and we want to get media on it. So I paused and said, okay, let's work backwards. What are your goals? Because number one, there's the challenges we talked about earlier with the decline in media. But then there's also the challenge of, let's say, Birmingham has 8 restaurants, Nashville has 12, Columbus, Ohio has 5, and we're doing the same thing over and over. It's simply not newsworthy. So we said, let's take a breath, let's look back and say, what are your goals here? At the end of the day, you need heads and beds and butts and seats, right, in the hospitality market. So their goal was, ultimately, we just want people to get in and try our new menu items and see the renovated restaurant. They also wanted media coverage on the new menu items and the renovation. So we said, okay, let's think locally. Let's look at a better, more effective way to do this. And we created the Hometown Heroes campaign. And that's actually been one of probably favorite campaigns I've worked on in my entire career. So anytime O'Charlie's would renovate a restaurant, to open it back up to the community, they hosted a big celebration. We've honored over 150 veterans this way. So we worked with the local community. The local GMs usually had a good idea of some veterans or maybe some active duty. Maybe it was the mother who was holding down the fort while her husband was overseas. And we honor a local hometown hero. They're then invited into the restaurant. We give them a celebration. They're allowed to bring so many of their friends for a free meal, a free party. We have local color guard. We really make it a big celebration for them. Usually the local mayor, local elected officials get involved. And you know what? We still did a ribbon cutting, so my client got the photo op that they were so excited about. So at the end, we met even more of their goals. We did it in a much less self-serving way, and created local loyalty and buy-in in the community in a way that simply hosting a ribbon cutting would not have done. And simply hosting a ribbon cutting, it wouldn't have gotten the media coverage. So in Nashville, where we have several restaurants, over the course of about 18 months, we had about 9 different hometown heroes, and we were able to get media coverage on all 9 of them. All 9 of them, brought their friends, family in, established loyalty that way. However, if we had just gotten a ribbon, done a ribbon cutting, that would have been one news story on O'Charlie's is renovating all of their Nashville area locations over the next year. And here's some photos of some of the veterans and active duty military that we've honored. It was really great. The local schools would send their color guards. They'd usually send someone to sing the national anthem. It really just became a great community event. And an unintended benefit that we hadn't even set out at the very beginning was the employee loyalty. The employees loved being involved in this, and just to see them, sharing with the guests what was going on. Because the restaurant was not closed down for it. So other people would walk in and they'd see the color guard and the flag, and they'd see the Hometown Heroes poster and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And the employees would just beam with pride as they explained what the restaurant was doing. And then other guests would start going up and talking to the honoree. It was just a really beautiful promotion, and one that I'm so honored to have been a part of concepting. So that was an example of using community relations in traditional media with a unique angle, but with fewer opportunities for media coverage, your strategy definitely needs to be integrated as well. So we've talked about the local and community relations aspect, local media. Let's talk about micro-influencers. So what is a micro-influencer? It's an individual with between 1 and 10,000 extremely loyal followers. They can be more effective than media and celebrity spokespeople because their followers see them as authentic and have a genuine investment in their day-to-day lives. Additionally, their audience can offer access to very specialized demographics. So let me give a personal example here. I'm a runner. I'm typically training for some sort of distance race. Let's say a shoe brand, let's say Nike, works with one of the most famous influencers we all know is Kim Kardashian, right? So let's say they work with her to promote a running shoe. Am I going to notice that? Probably not. It's probably not going to be effective for me. But if they focus on and work with one of the running bloggers, influencer or fan accounts that I do follow, they can really reach people with a specific interest who will likely go out and take their advice on the running fuel or nutrition or new shoes or races to run or things like that. So a micro-influencer has a really niche following. In fact, 92% of consumers trust influencers more than celebrity endorsements or advertisements, according to MuseFind, which is an influencer marketing platform. And past this, we found that micro-influencers are especially useful for reaching millennials who follow certain accounts religiously to see what, where, and how their favorite influencers are living their lives and what brands they're working with. One example of how we've used this in the restaurant industry is I'm currently in the middle of a micro-influencer campaign for a national mid-sized restaurant brand. They have about 50 plus locations across the country, but we've got a bit of a geographical challenge there. They're sprinkled across the U.S., but there's like 2 to 3 locations in each market. So that makes it difficult to find one influencer or one media outlet that would really hit all of their locations. So to combat this, we're handpicking the top 8 to 10 in each market to invite them in for tastings. And developing a relationship with a core set of influencers can be worthwhile to really cut through the noise of big advertisers and reach your audience directly. It's really important to be selective, though. Everybody wants a free room night. Everyone wants a free meal, right? So anyone can technically say, I have an Instagram account. Can I come in and do something on you? So we have a vetting process, and my contact info is actually at the end of this presentation, and I'm happy to send out the vetting process to anyone who shoots me their email address so we can share the things that we really look at when we're determining, are we going to invest the time, in working with this person to promote our brand. I'm going to talk a little bit about a hotel in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So this is another real-world example of micro-influencers. And we were coordinating hotel visits whose primary following was our target audience, which is families in several specific feeder cities to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And like I mentioned, everyone wants a free hotel stay, right? So it was vital for us to be selective and work with influencers that were small enough to have highly engaged followings, but professional enough to really represent the brand in the best light. We targeted travel and family-focused influencers to reach the resort's core demographic. Our selected influencers didn't have tens of thousands of followers, and that was okay, because national exposure wasn't our goal with this particular campaign. That likely wouldn't have gotten us the heads and beds that we were looking for. Instead, these influencers were selected because they had extremely high engagement with the followers that they did have and in our feeder markets. So it's important to note as well that for media outreach, brand ambassador campaigns, or influencer relations, 90% of the work happens before you even pick up the phone to call and talk to somebody. It's all about researching and really nailing down who is the best person to tell your story and engage with your brand. So really looking at things like, what demographic do they reach? Does it align with our demographic? What markets are they heavy in? Where do they engage on a regular basis? How does their photography look? That's something we look at often, because if they do a great job with photography, I think you can see right here the passports and grubs at the bottom. We love working with her because she does a great job with photography, that then she makes our properties and our clients, their food look good. So then we can share it. It creates content for us to use on our Instagram sites as well for our clients. So looking at their ability to create content for us as well. And the beautiful thing about this campaign with Margaritaville, and actually most micro influencer campaigns, is we don't pay them anything. You know, a mega influencer with 100,000 followers is probably going to want money to come in, try your restaurant, and then post and write about it. With micro influencers, we typically just negotiate up front as, hey, we're going to provide you these room nights or these opportunities to come in and eat at our restaurant. And in return, we'd love you to write about your experience. So it's not just about influencers you're introducing your brand to, though. Let's talk about locals and your guests. So with fewer opportunities for media coverage, let's look at the people who know your brand best and who are the most loyal. So Hannah Paramore-Breen, local tourism marketing expert, presented some research findings. I heard her speak last year, and it was really great, and it really validated the point that we've been trying to make with our clients on, let's think more locally, let's think more micro. Locals impact more than the day-to-day experience your visitors are having. They play an important role in influencing visitation as well, with all of the sophistication and experience we have in creating brands and marketing campaigns that tug on people's heartstrings. The power of the oldest tactic in the world, which is word of mouth and personal recommendations, is still unmatched. What does this mean for you? Love your locals. Engage locals as your brand advocates. Invite them to come experience your restaurant or service for themselves. Offer incentives to those who refer you business, such as a brand ambassador or loyalty program. And this is my favorite, and I really think it's the most important. Get your team involved in the community. Provide ways for them to do this. We're fortunate to work with McDonald's in several different states, and I'm going to share a campaign we did in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama. And while clearly McDonald's is a huge global brand, they have locations in some very rural communities across the United States. And it's important for them to engage directly with these communities and these locals. They are also all locally owned. So we really want to remember that when we're working in the communities. One of the most recent initiatives we've done with them has been Coffee with a Cop, where we facilitated with 8 local owner-operators to host about 21 Coffee with a Cop events. This is where we invited cops into the local restaurants to engage with the community, get to know them. These, 8 stores garnered more than 20 media hits with over 500,000 media impressions. But in addition, it drove in-restaurant traffic and positioned these owner-operators as contributing members to the local communities. So there's really lots of ways to engage the locals in your area and make them ambassadors for your brand. I hope we've provided you with some actionable ideas, and we have a Q&A section that we'll get to in a moment. My contact info is also provided. Happy to brainstorm with any of you or send further information on any of these case studies if it is helpful.
Patricia, do you want to? Oh, sorry. Yes, I was just going to open up for Q&A if you're ready. So let me just go over here. The first question we have: How do you handle the micro-influencers who turn down the free meal stay after, unless money is also involved?
Well, we play that on a case-by-case basis. Because we have had situations where, we work with them for a while as they're building their presence, and then a year later they're getting more and more money, so they're wanting to do that as well. It's a case-by-case basis. We have criteria for working with influencers, and if they meet the criteria and then exceed them, and we still feel in our gut it's a really, really good fit for our brand, we do have some discretionary budget with most of our clients, but the first ask is always going to be, we're going to just do this for trade. But it's a case-by-case basis, and there are some where we do a little spend with. But by little, I mean sometimes we're talking $100 or less.
Got it. Thank you very much. The next question we have, what is the process for selecting a local organization or cause to align your brand with?
Absolutely. So it's 8 criteria that we look at when partnering with an existing organization. And I also have this in a document that I could send out as well. So if anyone wanted it, just shoot me an email. And it's number 1, does the organization have a strong online social media presence with cross-promotional opportunities? Because remember, it's cause marketing and it's marketing, but it's still marketing, right? It's mutually beneficial and there has to be an ROI. So just because we're doing something great and nice for a community organization or a nonprofit, it has to benefit us as well. So we need to make sure that they can actually promote it to their followers. Number 2, is the organization actually interested in a true partnership with us, or are they looking for possibly just the big check and not much of a relationship? And if that's the case, that typically isn't the best fit because, again, it's still marketing. It has to be mutually beneficial. How flexible is the organization in allowing us to customize the programs? Number 4, is the organization efficient with their funding? And 5, what's their overall reputation with the general public? Do their core values, do their mission of the organization align with ours as a brand? Is the organization large enough to cover our geographic reach and effectively cross-promote our brand? And then, is it a size where we can truly make a difference and we won't be one of dozens of corporate partners? Sometimes in the larger markets, we come across that, not so much in a smaller town, but in the larger DMAs, sometimes, my client might be one of 20 restaurants they work with. And if that's the case, it just often doesn't make sense. So we really look at who else they work with as well. And then, is what we're doing actually going to make a difference for them?
Thank you. The next question we have is, do national chains usually work with local organizations, or do they have one nationally that they typically work with?
It's sometimes a combination of both. So with I'm working with Kona Grill right now, and that's who I mentioned we were doing micro-influencer campaigns for, and we're going through this with them right now. And sometimes geographically, it's hard because the national one might not have local booths in all of your markets. So in that case, we might work with similar organizations in each of their markets. Another thing, like with O'Charlie's, we ended up lining up some national partnerships, and we have criteria for that. But the Hometown Heroes campaign, we ended up creating our own, because once we went through all of the criteria, like, does it make sense geographically? Can we find an organization that really their demographic meets ours? We decided, veterans is going to be our cause, but we're going to create our own program. So really, it's kind of whatever makes the most sense. You can partner with locals in each community. So McDonald's does a good job of that. The work we do for them, we work with several different community organizations in each specific city, because what works in Louisville, Kentucky might not work in Birmingham, Alabama, and each market has its own local flavor and flair. So we rely heavily on the operational folks in these markets to tell us what makes the most sense for them, and then doing our research as well. And then for some clients, it's personally, my experience has been finding that one national organization that is going to work for your brand, but also for all of your in-market restaurants, it's like a unicorn. So that's very difficult. And if you do that and find it, like, latch on and make them your best friends and be their partners forever.
Thank you. How do you find local media contacts to reach out, specifically with local TV stations?
It's all about the research. So, as a PR agency, we have access to databases that we would not expect our clients to have. So on our end, we have what's called Cision, we have TVIs, we have different research databases. But let's just say you're a restaurant manager. I'd start with Google, looking at your TV stations, and then calling up. Some keywords to look for, if you can find online, would be the news director, finding out who the news director or assignment editor is. A lot of people think, let's call up the person who we see on TV, right? Let's call the anchor I see on TV. Actually, the news director, assignment editors are the ones funneling and assigning the stories. So we always start with them. And you can usually Google them, WKRN TV Nashville assignment editor and figure that out. There's different assignment editors for weekend. There's different for morning. There's different for evening. You can also just call up to the newsroom and say, hey, looking for the assignment editor to talk about an event on this day. Who's the best person to shoot this info out to? And they'll usually give it to you. And then one more thing, watch before you're, reaching out or pitching something, especially if it's media, if it's print, read the stories first that these reporters have written. So if you're pitching print, look through the editors, and the editors are, going to be writing stories as well. Read through their stories, see their writing styles, see things they've written about in the past, and make sure what you're pitching them aligns with that, and you'll have better success.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. I'm just giving it a second to see if there's any other. Oh, actually, we just got another question. Next question is, do media react to story ideas on Twitter or Facebook? If so, which one is better?
Yes, sometimes, but again, because you're typically going to you want to go through the people who are actually assigning it, email is often the best way. How I use social media with reporters is to follow them and get to know their preferences and things they're covering. Because a lot of times they're going to tweet, hey, in, Minnesota looking for brands that do X, Y, Z. And so I'll get leads that I wouldn't have otherwise. But really for pitching them, I stick to email or phone calls. So I would use social media for getting background info on them.
Thank you. The next question that just came in, do you organize a strategy with the influencer or have them have creative freedom?
We give them creative latitude with guidelines and guardrails. So with all of our clients, before we do any sort of influencer campaign, we're going to put down, we call it our guidelines and guardrails document. And it's things that are off limits, things that are encouraged, that sort of thing, our brand standards, things like that. And we're very upfront with the influencers. Now, if we tell them, we're not going to tell them what they have to order on the menu, but we might say, hey, order whatever looks good. We'd really also love you to try one of these 3 new menu items that we'll bring out to you as well. So, especially if we're paying them, which is rare, but if we are, we really make it kind of a contract almost, it's all in writing. We keep it all in email back and forth so that we can go back and say, hey, you haven't posted yet. Or one thing to also note is we always clarify up front that we're looking for content. We're looking for posts, because sometimes they'll just do Insta stories, which are great. I mean, we really love that. However, we want to make sure we get on their feeds as well. Now, the Insta stories are awesome because they can then see who looks at it, and we always ask for that information. So let's say I'm working with an influencer, and they're doing some stories on some new menu items. They're going in and seeing who's looked at their Insta stories. I'm asking them to screenshot that info over to me as well, because then we have some true ROI to show our client.
Interesting. Thank you, Lauren. We have another question that came in asking, what other type of nonprofit organizations have you worked with, and should they be food related?
That's a great question. So we go back and forth with restaurant clients all the time because the obvious one that they all want to work on is hunger relief. And that is great, and restaurants make so much sense for that. However, it's hard to differentiate yourself there. So it really depends on the client. We start with who is your core demographic, who is your audience, and then what resonates with them. So for O'Charlie's, they started out wanting to work in hunger relief. And in some of the local stores, we do have hunger relief components, work with Second Harvest and Feeding America. But when they came to us and we really hammered down into who their customer is, who is their guest, hunger relief wasn't what resonated with their guests. It was military initiatives. So we built our whole campaign around that. With another client, we've worked with local children's hospitals. Some clients work with education. To us, it's all about, number one, what resonates with your guests, but number two, what resonates with you, as the owner or the GM and your frontline employees, because their heart has to be in it, because they're the ones talking about it on a daily basis.
Thank you. Another question, how long is the process? Is it usually a week-long program?
That is, again, a case-by-case basis. So it really depends on your marketing plan. So with our clients, we sit down, it's we're in Q4, so we're looking at 2019 marketing planning right now. And for some clients, it's going to be, for O'Charlie's, for example, the military initiative is going to be an annual campaign, and it's weaving in and out of everything we do next year. For other clients, there's going to be these spot campaigns, like the Coffee with a Cop we did with McDonald's. That was a one-day campaign, but it was across a large footprint. For some other clients, it might be a week-long, roundup initiative, or give 5, get 5. We've done that a lot, leading up to Christmas. It's always popular, or the holidays, doing give 5 to this organization that makes sense, and we'll give you 5 back in a gift card. So then we're driving them back into the restaurant. And let's see, I think we do that for a 3-week time frame. So really that is subjective. It's whatever makes sense for you operationally. I can't stress that enough, because if it can't be done easily in restaurant, it's not going to be a success. So we've had not trouble, but hiccups with roundup campaigns, like roundup to the nearest dollar before, because it just wasn't as seamless as possible for the servers. We always keep in mind, this is just, you didn't ask this, but it's kind of a tidbit. Whatever we do, if we're asking for actual donations or we're asking our guests to engage, we want to keep in mind and make sure that we're not going to be taking away tips from our servers while doing that. So that's just something we keep in mind at the front end as well.
Thank you. We have another question asking, what should a restaurant budget be to implement this type of program?
It really, I think it's going to depend on if you're an independent restaurant, or if you're a restaurant with 200 plus locations, or if you're somewhere in the middle, or let's say you're a local restaurant with 5 locations. I really think that's a really hard one for me to answer, because it's all on such a case-by-case basis. So I'm sorry, that's a lame answer. But without knowing specific situations, it's really hard to budget for that.
No problem, Lauren. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was saying, if we're just talking influencer campaigns, I can give a more number. If you're doing it internally, and there won't be any fees involved, or for a marketing agency. But I think it's fair. You could probably budget, let's say, you could do a 3-month influencer campaign and budget $1,000 total to pay influencers, and know that the rest is going to be hard costs as far as food that you're donating.
Thank you. I believe that was the last question. I'll give it a second, but I don't know if you want to go back to your contact page with your information just to show everyone where they could reach you. Again, thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing all of your valuable expertise with our audience. It was really a terrific presentation. I know I learned a lot, and we really appreciate it. So if everyone wants to take a quick last look here at Lauren's contact information where you could reach her and reach out for any questions, we will also make this available on our website, www.foodandbevshows.com in the next coming week. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, and I would be happy to answer any questions if anyone wants to just shoot me an email.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Lauren, and we will be in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.